Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're making a really simple creamy tomato soup. This is a very quick and easy recipe. If you have broth at home or stock at home, you can omit a few of the ingredients. We start out with diced carrots, diced celery, and twice the amount of diced onions. Then we need garlic. You can either mince that. I'm gonna use a press because for me that's the application for a garlic press. Since the more surface area you give to garlic, the more garlicky it tastes. So if you squeeze it through a press, you get the maximum amount of surface area. So you get the maximum amount of garlicky flavor, which is exactly what I want in the soup. If you don't want that, go with a mince. Now, do yourself a favor, do not use the minced garlic out of a jar. That's just junk. Go get a garlic and chop it up. What else you need is heavy cream, a little bit of sugar, and of course you need tomatoes. There's a word to be said about the tomatoes. So normally you would use like passata for it. That's essentially liquefied tomatoes. You could even use something like tomato juice for it, although that would get rather acidic because in the US tomato juice always contains a lot of vitamin C or ascorbic acid to retain color and to make it last longer. So that would be a pretty harsh soup. If you don't have passata or you don't want to spend the money on it, what I did is I just took a can of whole tomatoes and ran them through the blender. So now I have essentially what you pay $2 more for as a passata. The only other thing we need is a little bit of basil, and we need some tomato paste. That's the little cans or the tubes. All right, since I already prepped all of this, there's no chopping to be done today. We'll just head over to the stove and get this show on the road. We're over here at the stove. I'll just preheat my pot a little bit. Now we're just gonna add a tablespoon or maybe 2 of olive oil. Swig that around. And then we're just gonna add our carrots, our onions, and our celery. If you have a ready-made broth or stock, you can omit the carrots and the celery because that's already in the stock. So you just use a few onions. Now we are sweating this with a pinch of salt. You don't really want this to get too brown or brown at all actually. You just sweat this a little. Don't worry about cutting the vegetables too precise because we're going to blend this later on anyways. Now we're giving this like, I would say 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. Always roast tomato paste a little bit. I know this is sticky stuff, but it's worth it. Do not add garlic at this point because we don't really want that garlic to burn in there. Now we can add the garlic. That's just before we put in the passata. Just so that the garlic gets a little bit of heat, but not a lot. Give it maybe 20-30 seconds. And now just add your passata. This is gonna sit here and simmer. We're gonna put a lid on, and all we're gonna do is occasionally swing by and stir it. Once this comes up to a simmer, we're gonna go to a low temperature, like 3 out of 10, let's say, just so that it keeps simmering. And then we'll let it do its thing for 20-30 minutes, at which point we're gonna add the cream and the basil. Let it simmer for another 3-4 minutes, and we're ready to serve. In the meantime, I'll show you a few things we will add to this soup to make it a little bit more fancy. Back over here, we're gonna make a little fancy addition to our soup. You could do croutons. Croutons would work perfectly on a soup like that. You can do a freshly baked baguette to go with it. I've chosen something a little bit different. So here is a baking sheet. And what I'm gonna do is I have a handful of cherry tomatoes. We're gonna dust these little guys with powdered sugar. Yeah, I got the fancy sugar mill from way back when. Okay. Once you dusted them with sugar, the cherry tomatoes go into a preheated oven at around 320, that's roughly 160 degrees Celsius, for, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. After that, once they're soft and nicely caramelized, you just pull them out, let them cool, and put them in the soup right before serving. This has been simmering for, I would say, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. It's already tasting pretty good. So now we're just going to add a little more salt, a couple grinds of black pepper. We're going to add some basil. And we're going to add a good swig of cream. Let this simmer uncovered for another 5 to 10 minutes. And we're ready to serve together with the tomatoes that are still in the oven. Okay, another 10 minutes have passed. It's boiled down a little. It's looking very good. Now we're doing another sample here. It's very nice. What it could use, and this is almost a must, is some kind of sweetness. So you could use honey, you could use agave. I'm just using plain sugar. So let's do about a teaspoon. That should round it out. Whenever you have acidity in any dish, a little bit of sugar or a little bit of sweetness will round the flavor out. Perfect. Now, we're using a stick blender. You could use a regular blender too. Just be careful with the hot liquid. And I'm just blending this. Okay, that should do. See how nice and creamy that soup is now? Perfect. Time to serve. Not all of them went well. Put a few in here. They could have used a few minutes more in the oven, but this is good enough. All it takes is ladle some of that on. Now, if you have a couple of croutons, that would be perfect. Other than that, this is a nice soup. Enjoy. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.
Never really know